Once again, good morning, everyone. I think whilst we are waiting for others to attend, we can have a short discussion just to allow others to join us. Maybe you can just introduce yourself and tell us what you are expecting to learn today.
Hi, good morning. My name is Mandisa Dukashe from Zanoncedo Empowerment Center. And we've got a big garden in the office, and we also have few gardens in the community. So I think due to issues of climate change and scarcity of water, I think, and sometimes we don't get enough produce. You don't get as much as we're supposed to get out of what we've put in the soil. Probably it's a skill, we need some tips, we need some strategies, and that's what we am expecting to learn from this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mandisa. It's also good to hear what we are doing there. Next, we also would want to tell us what their expectations are today. Yandipa, don't you want to tell us what are you expecting today? I don't think she can hear us. Anyone? I can see people unmuting but not talking. Fanny, do you want to say something? What are you expecting today? Yeah, your network is bad. We cannot hear anything. Okay. Hello.
Morning. Yes,
Morning.
my name is Michael Bissett from Tushu Advice and Development Center. I'm the project manager.
Yes.
My expression will be how to manage communal gardens. Thank you.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Maybe if we can have the last one. It's now 6 past. Lutando, why are you quiet?
I was just giving people some time to reflect on the question. Good morning, Sandra, and good morning to all of you, dear participants. Lutando Kamlayo from St. Martin Parish, which is under the Diocese of Mzimvubu in Bizana. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to be here for a long time because I am conducting a retreat for people who will be getting ordained to the priesthood on Sunday. So I've just stolen an hour of their time. Well, I am here to learn about project management, really, because this is going to be the first time that we have gardening at a larger scale as a parish or as a church. So we need some coaching on how to manage it, but also in terms of mitigation and adaptation in times of drought and scarcity of water.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who has joined us today. I'm sure the others will join us as we proceed. They'll find us on the way. as you all are all aware, we are in the process of awarding some small grants to people who would want to do various projects. And some of you have indicated that you would want to start garden projects. And our team saw it fit that you also have information from people who actually have the knowledge on how you can actually run a garden that is productive, especially in this area where we have erratic rainfalls, we have droughts and all that. So our facilitator today will assist us and help us to do that. And I would like to introduce to you our facilitator, Anadin. Anadin, if you can just open your video so that we can see you and the participants as well. Okay, I'm not seeing Anadin. Anadin, may you please switch on your camera? Next to the mute button, there is a video. You can switch. Okay. Yes, now we can see you, Anadin. And I will actually hand over this session to Anadin, who will take us through this discussion that we have today. I am also going to be learning from Anadin. Please, let's not hesitate to give inputs to Anadin so that we learn a lot from this session today. Anadin, now it's your time. Thank you so much for joining us. You can unmute yourself, Anadin. We cannot hear you. Yes, now you're unmuted.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I really appreciate it for allowing me to do the presentation here regarding vegetables. Good morning, everyone. Oh, so it's a real privilege to present a vegetable course, not a course, a presentation actually to you. And I hope we can learn from each other, but the expectation is that I am here to scarcity and how to mitigate that in terms of still planting vegetables. So I hope that we all can learn. I'm also from the Eastern Cape. I'm actually closer to Ellisdale there in the Eastern Cape. And we've done training for in the Western Cape of Sierras. So I hope that all of us can learn. So Sandra, can I start with it? Oh, she can't hear me.
Yes.
Okay, so the presentation is in Sandra. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Anadin.
Sandra?
Yes, okay. I can hear you.
Thanks very much. Now, a few of us, Mandisa and Luthando, gave us an introduction of the expectations regarding what happens in their garden. So I'm really interested in Mandisa, the two gardens that she have there, where they do not receive an expected yield from the garden. And I assume that there are certain practical things which we have to sort out. Now, my introduction is this. Vegetables is intensive use of soil. It is so you need capital and you need labor. It is specialized and it also has a short growing period. Now, it is so that the growing period for vegetables normally is around 3 to 4 months, but some of your onions, for example, have a large growing period for 7 to 8 months. It is a little bit too so long waiting period before you can harvest it. It is climate related and it needs water. Is so. Yes, and it is soil play a major role when it comes to vegetables. You need soil, water, you need water. It is so. And it is related, very climate related. Seeing that we have two types of vegetables, the ones which has a cool weather climate which is needed, cool weather climate, and
Anadin,
then you also need a warm weather climate.
hello,
Now, I
Anadin.
think that explains it also. Yes.
Yes, your network is breaking a bit. Maybe if you can close your video, it can help a little bit. Maybe we can hear you. Yeah. Okay.
Much better now. Should I
Uh,
start from the beginning again? Just summarize it. Okay. Vegetables is very intensive. It is so, and you need so. Okay. Someone was talking. It is specialized, and it also has a short growing period. It's a cash crop, and you have to wait longer for it. And you need water. Unfortunately, we need water, but the water we have to manage how we can save water, conserve water, and to be longer with our garden, to do our garden on a longer term. As I've said, it is divided. Vegetables is divided into two groups. We have your cold weather vegetables, and you have also your warm weather vegetables. But maybe we can talk later on that. But your cool weather vegetables is such as your cabbages, spinach, beetroot, cauliflower, broccoli, and all that. Whereas your warm weather plants is because most of your plants, vegetable plants, prefer a warm weather, such as potatoes, sweet potato, peppers, tomatoes. So there's a large group when it comes to your warm weather vegetables. But also it is perishable. Unfortunately, it is perishable. So you have to use it in a short time. Okay. Can Sandra, can you move to the next slide? Now, vegetables for human consumption, oh no, it provides energy to us. It reduces heart diseases, building of body cells, build our bones, good for normal body function and vision. But I know we have a passion to do vegetables, to establish a vegetable garden, and to keep us away from ShopRite or the retail shops, where these vegetable products become very expensive. And it is more healthy if we can have our own vegetable, produce our own vegetables. I can give you an example, like your carrots. Now carrots, if you buy it at the shops and so on, it has a bitter taste. But if you harvest it and you remove it out of the soil in your own garden, it tastes very sweet, much more, there's much tasty, and and it also doesn't cook too long. So you save much energy if you produce your own vegetables. Okay. Now, classification of vegetables. You have leaf vegetables such as your lettuce, spinach, your brassicas, cabbages, cauliflower, broccoli falls under the brassicas. Then you have pumpkin crops like the pumpkin itself, squashes, cucumbers, watermelon, and so. they fall under that family. Legumes, like your grain beans, peas, butter beans, and so they fall under legumes. And I just want to mention regarding legumes. Legumes is one of your multi-purpose crops, seeing that if you can harvest it, you can harvest the pods of it. But important thing is also regarding legumes is that they also convert, they also release nitrogen to the soil for your follow-up crop. And that is a thing that we really have to emphasize. Seeing that your follow-up crop benefit from the nitrogen which was released due to grain beans or peas or butter beans. Then the other group is also your root crops like your onions, beetroot, and carrots. And then you have also your fruit crops, like your tomatoes, peppers, brinjals, and also your potatoes. I don't sound if they can we stop here or should we proceed for the while?
I don't know. Do you prefer people to ask questions as we go,
Okay.
or you want the questions at the end?
I think we can during the time, seeing that if the questions comes up, then people want to ask questions. I think we can do it on that way.
Okay, all right. So if there are questions, people can just raise their hands and then we stop.
Okay.
Okay. I'll let you know if there's any questions. I'll also check in the chat box if there are any questions.
Okay, good.
All right.
We can move
You
forward.
can-
Okay. Now the economy of vegetable gardening. There are certain questions that you should ask yourself. Is there demand for vegetable garden, to do a vegetable garden? And if so, that it is obvious that our households need vegetable gardens. But when it comes to community gardens, your communal gardens, then you must determine whether the community wants a vegetable garden in that garden. And we know vegetable gardens for itself is a need for all of us. What would it cost me to start a vegetable garden? I think it is very important to know what would it cost me to start a vegetable garden. What items do I need to start with my vegetable garden? Seeing there are certain things that you have to buy, or maybe you have it on your premises. Maybe you have a spade, you have maybe a fork, you have maybe a rake or so on. But the seeds, we have to buy the seeds. If it is seedlings, how far is the nursery from me? Or how far is the retail shops like your ShopRite and Checkers and so on from, or the co-ops which sells the seeds? How far are they from me? Do I have to pay taxi or so on? So those are the questions we have to think of before we start with our garden. And also, what is the volume my garden can produce to feed the kitchen? And that is very important. The volume, it is linked to the size of my garden. And the size is again linked of my garden is again linked to the water availability and how much water do I have in my yard. So will I use municipal water? Is there a river near me? Or do I have a JoJo tank to catch the water, to harvest the water? So those are the things you have to ask yourself before starting with the garden. Most important, can my household budget afford a vegetable garden? I think that is the cost and my household budget, yes. Seeing that normally we take our money from the house, which we budget for the house, and use it in the garden. So it must compensate each other when you harvest it, especially what Mandisa was saying, they doesn't get enough yield is not, the size of the yield is not good enough. And there's certain reasons which I maybe can talk later with you when it comes to soil preparation. Thank you. Now, types of vegetable production systems. Now, it is so we have different types of vegetable production systems. We have commercial production system, which where the farmers is do vegetable on a large scale, on a commercial scale, where these guys have water in abundance. The soil is suitable, the climate is suitable, but water is the most important thing when it comes to commercial production of vegetables. Home gardening and container gardening is more or less the same. Home gardening is a normal way where we do the planting in the soil, which is the normal practices. We have a beds and we start digging and we have our beds and we start with the gardening and do the planting in the soil. But when it comes to container gardening, and those two can accomplish themselves, container gardening is especially where the soil is very stony in your yard or in a community garden where the soil is very stony, the soil depth is not that deep, and then container gardening could be the best option for us to start a garden. And your water in terms of container is much better controlled when you do it in your normal home gardening systems and so on. Then production under protection, that is your greenhouses. Also a good system, especially where the climate is very moderate, not too hot, not too cold, and you have access to water. And maybe you can, maybe on a later, can start production under protection where the plant stands under a tunnel or greenhouse, and the yield is much better, the quality is much better. Yes, so the quality is much better, so you can bargain maybe for a better price, but it's very expensive. It is the same with commercial production system. Is open field. It is very expensive. Production under protection, like your tunnels, your initial cost is very expensive for the structure and the net and also the plastic, but your yield is much higher in a small area compared to your commercial production systems. Okay, Sandra? Now, this is just the pic in front of us is only an example of a commercial one, where you have large areas to plant. In this case, it is onions, where the onions is irrigated. You can see the water sources in abundance here. So the farmer doesn't have a problem with water in this case here. Okay. Home gardening, this your normal home gardening is a little bigger. But your normal size of home gardening, normal, you will find how your house is there. And it's a much smaller space compared to the pic what we see in front of us now. Okay. Container gardening, where we make use of tires. It's also called reaching of the soil. But in this case, we use tires. We can use any type of container. I've seen it here in Oudtshoorn, where the gardeners make use of an old toilet flush system, and they also use that one as the garden. Or you can use any type of even your bricks, those large brick blocks, which you can also use with the two holes inside. I've done it there in Cape Town, and it, although it's not that much that you can put plants or seeds that you can put in, but I've done it and it was real successful. The tires is a nice thing, and your water usage is much controlled. There you can use the water can and so on, and your water usage is lower when you use the container gardening. So this big here, it is a little bit expensive due to the structure around it, the shade net and so on. But it's an option when your soil is not that deep, or you have stony type of soil. where you can't do gardening in the soil itself. Okay. Production under protection, and this is the plastic that you can see here. And the two ladies here doing the harvesting, and so here the plant stands in a plastic bag with sawdust, and you control the water and the nutrients. We call this way of water your plants fumigation, fertigation, and meaning that the fertilizers is mixed in the water outside the tunnel, and then you pump the mineral water, fertilized water into the tunnel, and that is how you supply water to your plants. Now, question that we should ask ourselves when planning, it's important that we plan our garden. That is very important. Remember, guys, if it is your first time that you start with a garden, there's two things which are very important. Your private time, which is normally the things that you normally do on a daily basis. And here comes some a new practice in a garden, and you have to manage the time that you spend in the garden and the time that you spend in the house, or do your normal activities in the house. That is very important. Otherwise, if you start the garden and your private time, your household time, if you can say it like that, is more than spending time in the garden, then you will neglect your garden. It is so. So also the space. What is the space now of the where you will put your garden? Is the space adequate enough? And I'm saying, and I've said it also to Claire, a garden is not like you need a wide space to start a garden. A garden can also be 2 to 3 meters in length with 1 meter size width. That can also be a garden. So, and such a garden could be much profitable for the household. Also, the need of the household, that is very important. What crops do my people in my house loves the best? That is very important. And that is the question that you should ask yourself before starting with the garden. What vegetables is it that my household need the most? And if you have that answer, then you have to link it with the vegetables with the climate, the time of planting. What time is the best to do that planting? So those are the questions that you have to ask yourself. And yes, how much time will I devote to myself, to the garden? Will I go in organically or conventionally? Now, organically is where I use mulching and animal manure, chicken manure, bird manure, pig manure, crow manure. Those are the things that I will fertilize my soil instead of fertilizers. So fertilizers, when we apply fertilizers to the soil to feed our plants, that is a conventional method, and it's very expensive. You have to buy fertilizer and so on. And I think our crow manure is relatively available in most of our communities where we stay. And I would rather go in organically instead of conventionally to do the gardening that way. Yes. What budget you have available? And we've talked about it. What budget is available in my planning? Remember, if you plan, you must have something, a budget, some small budget to start such a garden. Is there any legal access for water to maintain your garden? Do I need the permission from the municipality to take water from the river? And we know that water is no longer a farmer property. or a garden property, it belongs to the public, it belongs to the government, it belongs to, so it's no longer in source, a natural source where the farmer can say, this water belongs to me. So that is very important. If it's especially in a river system or borehole system, where you need permission to drill a borehole. So those are the things that you have to think of before you start with a garden. Municipal water is very expensive. It is so, and I think that's the reason why SCET has decided if we assist again with gardening, we should have some ways to conserve our water, putting things in place instead of using only municipal water. Isn't there other ways that you can water our plants? And I think we will discuss that during the presentation. Okay. Sandra, planning, needs of the family. Yes, we've discussed it. The climate. What time of the year is it when I start with my garden? So if it is in the summer, or in the springtime, then I have to think of warm weather plants. If it is in the winter or the autumn, then I should think of cool weather plants. And I've mentioned those cool weather plants, such as your cabbages, your lettuce, your beetroot, and normally you also do the sowing of onions in the autumn. But I think when it comes to water usage for onions, the time that onions will stand there in the soil is too long to maintain it. So you need water it from a regular basis. So maybe in terms of what we're discussing now here, the onions is out of the question. And we know we need onions in our preparation for the food. Soil preparation, how will we do it? Do we have the tools to do the soil preparation? And my way of gardening is you need a fork to do the digging, not a spade. You need the spade for other purposes, but the fork is the best tool for me when it comes to digging. And soil preparation is deep soil loosening. That is one requirement when it comes to vegetables and all plants. You need deep soil, not shallow soil. There's more disadvantage compared to deep soil preparation. So that is the success, one of the success of gardening, when you do your soil loosening much deeper. And the deepness is the length of the blade of that fork of you. That is more than enough, around a ruler length. Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Anadin. Sorry, I was just. You can go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Then water, and then I think the water is our main challenges due to the municipal water, which is so expensive. So there must be ways how we will mitigate that. And one which I normally say is the waste water of the house. That is water that we can use. We're talking about gray water. If it is a a household vegetable garden. Community gardens, I've read in your in the presentation that Claire was sending to me, the data that she put available to me, is that some of us do have boreholes and so on. So boreholes, especially for community gardens, will be maybe best, But when it comes to household gardens, we should maybe think of the wastewater of the house, your bath water, the bath water, the washing water, and so on. The kitchen water is a little bit of a concern when it comes to kitchen water, seeing that there's too much fattiness in such water, and that fatness, you can see it if you use it for a long period, then you will see it on the soil, on top of the soil, that you can see the fat around the plants, and that is not good for plant growth. So maybe the kitchen water should go to the municipality. But the wash water, your body wash water in the bath, and also the water from the washings, the laundry, those water is for me more than enough, or more than enough for your garden. Labor, unfortunately, you are the laborer in your own garden. You are the manager, you are the all-rounder in that garden. It means it has to do with your time management, how you'll spend time in your garden. And the best time for me spending in the garden is actually in the morning time. In summer, it's early day. In the morning time is the best time. It's cool that time. It's also the best time to water your plants. In the summer, seeing that the time is very cool. And you have time then, after that, you have time to spend for your personal activities and so on. Cultivars cultivars are very important. We have different varieties of potatoes. You have varieties of carrots, beetroot, cabbages, and so on. So different cultivars that you will find. Some of the cultivars are bred specifically for certain purposes or for certain soils. I can give you an example, like your carrots. The Cape market is the one, Cape market is one, it is bred for sandy soil. Whereas your Kiroda is bred for a little bit heavy soil. It do very well on sandy soil, but it also do very well on clay type of soil. So those are the things that you consider. Seed sowing is very important. Seed sowing, certain types, we make use of seeds. If you do the transplanting, it comes from seed. If you do the sowing, it is seeds. So the deepness of it plays a role, and also the watering of the seeds. That is very important. So how I will do the sowing of seeds, I will do it with my fingers. That is the one that we normally use when it comes to household gardens. Transplanting of seedlings. Normally we can do our seedlings in the beds, do the sowing of seedlings in beds. That is where we propagate our seedlings, or we can buy it from a reputable nursery. Now, that is very expensive when you talk about nurseries and so on. You have most of the nurseries is not close to us. So the sowing of seeds is my best option when it comes to community gardens and so on. Do the plant sowing directly, and it is also in the advantage of the plant and the seeds and so on, saying that you will not, if it is a direct sowing, you will not remove the plants. So there are two types of sowing, of seed sowing. The one is direct sowing. The second one is where we propagate or multiply seedlings in a bed, a seed bed that is in the soil, or the seedlings where we buy it from a reputable nursery. So those are the things you have to plan. And the direct sowing is my best option when it comes to home gardens. And so planting time, yes, planting time are depending from the crop. So we're coming from different areas in South Africa now, and some areas I never was before there. But my general knowledge and my experiences say that your springtime is actually the best time to start with, your gardens, and also autumn time. Those are the two times for me when it comes to planting time. Now, springtime is the time where you can actually plant most of your vegetables. Actually, all the vegetables that you can plant that time of the year. But when it comes to autumn time, then you have to be selective. You have to be selective, seeing that this is a time when you first have heat, but then later on it becomes harsh temperatures that you'll find. And also the harvesting, when will I harvest it? Seeing that you use your own labor, you will harvest it, or a group of people which may be in a community garden, the beneficiaries in a community garden, they will harvest the produce of you. Is there any questions maybe still now? Any questions, Sandra?
I don't see questions so far.
Okay. So we can proceed then.
Yes.
Okay. Crop rotation. Oh, this is a very nice one. Crop rotation. Now, crop rotation means actually the families of vegetable crops. So we rotate the families of vegetable crops. Now, the reason I can come back maybe all the crops which are families to or related with each other, but the reasons why we do crop rotations is to control the diseases. Now, if you plant one crop year in and year out in your garden, then you will multiply also the diseases and the insects and so on. So by bringing another crop into your garden or in the area where you've planted a specific crop, that will reduce the diseases and pests. Why? Certain insects love, for example, tomatoes, and there are more than six insects which attack tomato plants. One which are a favor for tomatoes is your red spider mites, and we can see the web on tomato plants. And if I'm going to a tomato plant and I see this, then I know exactly what insect is a real problem for that plant. So by bringing in, for example, a plant which is not related to tomatoes, such as cabbages or carrots or maybe onion or so on, that will reduce the insects in the soil and around it. Weed control, the reason why we rotate also the crops is actually to control our weeds. Why? Some crops you have to do the spacings very narrow. So the spacings would be very narrow, such as for example, your potato, where the spacings between the plants is a ruler length. But if you bring in pumpkins, for example, or even tomatoes also, where the spacing a little bit far further from the plants, then you can control the weeds much better when the space is very wide compared to where the space is very narrow. For potatoes, for example, onions, the same. Onions is also very narrow, it's very close to each other. The control of weeds is a little bit difficult where the spacing is a little bit narrow, but when you have a spacing which is far, such as potatoes or pumpkins, then you can control the weeds much better. And also for soil structure, this is not a soil structure yeah, so soil structure, maybe not that much, but soil structure is how the soil particles is bind together with each other. But when it comes to vegetable plants, they actually prefer soil which is very sandy or loamy soil. Clay soil is a little bit maybe too heavy when it comes to vegetables. Fertility of the soil, yes, certain crops take out more nutrients out of the soil, whereas others put it back to the soil. And I've mentioned green beans, the legumes, they putting nitrogen back to the soil, whereas most of your other crops actually taking nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, they take it actually all, they grab it actually out of the soil. So when we bring in, for example, green beans and peas and so on to our garden, we actually fertilize our soil. And important thing is when it comes to crop rotation, it keeps the earth covered. So plants' purpose is to cover the soil and to prevent it from soil erosion, and so on. So by planting plants or vegetables, you reduce the speed of a raindrop. It falls first on the plant and then it lands on the soil. So that helps so that the water infiltrate into the soil better and the soil can drink the water much better if there are plants. But if there's nothing, then you add through water, and it can also be done through the wind if the wind is blowing very fast. Okay, Sandra. Sandra? Thank you. Our soil fertility and soil potential and pH of the soil, they are vital when we work with plants. If it is the apple plants or grape plants or vegetable plants, soil fertility and potential of the soil and the pH of the soil, they are vital when it comes to plants. Now, soil fertility, it actually refers to the nutrients which are in the soil. And the plants is utilizing those nutrients, taking it up out of the soil with the help of water, and the roots taking it up and it's to the leaves, and the leaf can now convert that nutrients or raw material, it converted to what in the plant, or which are in the apple, or which are in the carrot, which we utilize that energy for our own healthness. Yeah. So soil fertility is very important, especially when you're talking about the yield, which is not a good size. Soil fertility plays a role there. Potential of that soil, the deepness of that soil. How deep is my soil? That hinders root development in the soil. So if your soil is deep, loose, it actually increase the potential of the soil. So the plant roots can go much deeper into the soil and catching that water minerals and send it up to the leaves. So the potential of a soil are limited due to fertility of that soil, the compaction of that soil, and also the last one is the pH of the soil. If a pH of the soil is not in line with the crop, then you have a decline or a limited
Anadin,
less produce
Anadin.
or yield from that plant. So the pH refers to the potential of the soil. Hello, Sandra?
Oh, okay. Your network was breaking there. I wonder if yeah. I think we last heard when we were talking about the soil potential. When you started the pH of the soil, it was breaking.
Okay, but are you now again on?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You can hear me, né?
Yes.
Okay. So by potential has to do with the deepness of the soil. If the soil is deep, you loosen it deep, you actually increase the potential of that soil. Meaning you're putting more air into that soil. You also break up compaction layers, and it also helps the roots to grow much deeper in search for water and nutrients. But important thing when it comes to deepness of soil, you store water deeper into the soil, and it is not exposed here at the surface where it is very hot of the soil. So when you put it, making your soil deep, loose, you are actually helping to store water deeper into the soil. And this system helps also to conserve water. So you don't need to water every day, every day. You can just supplement water to the soil and not giving water in abundance. The pH of the soil has to do with the potential of hydrogen or the connections, again unstable. The pH of the soil has to do with the acidity of the soil and also the alkalinity of the soil. If the soil pH is 7, then it is neutral. And that you can done it through testing, send it to a lab, maybe Department of test the soil to find out to determine what pH value of is your soil. When it is less than 7, when the pH is less than 7, then it is acid type of soil. Now, vegetables prefer acid type of soil such as 5 to 6.8 to 6.8. So if the soil pH is in that vicinity, most of the minerals are available to the plant roots. If it is above 7, then you start to a problem that some of the nutrients are in the soil, but they are not available to the plant. But I can assure us, when you
Sorry,
make use
Anadin.
of cow manure, chicken manure, all the organic stuff,
Anadin,
yeah,
is there a chance
okay,
that you can possibly change the position?
yeah, I can hear you, Sandra.
Yeah, but you are breaking again. Can you
Okay,
not
yeah,
change the?
that's the. Mm, can I will ask assistance here, ne?
Anadin, Hello. Um, you are muted, Anadin. If you can unmute. You have opened the video. Can you close your video? The next icon, that's the one. Yeah.
Can
Then
you hear me now, Sandra?
yes, but close your
Okay.
video. Yeah.
Sandra, can you close your videos? Then I'll mute here.
Yes, you can mute, but don't mute yourself. I'm asking you to close your video so that at least okay. Now you can unmute yourself. We cannot hear you because you are muted. Yes, you have
Must be
unmuted.
better.
Okay, we can try to continue.
Okay. So can I proceed? Proceed.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Yo, what's going on here? You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Now, soil, the organic material improves soil structure and water capacity. It is so organic materials such as crow manure, chicken manure, pig manure, bird manure, all of those, if we use those, it really helps to improve the soil structure. And it is so that if you use more of these organic stuff in our soil, you do gardening in line with nature. And that is what happens in nature. It is how nature feeds the plants. So if you make use of all these that I've mentioned now, it will really make your soil more healthy. And it also helps to increase the capacity of your soil. And that is very important. Seeing that those organic particles, such as the crow manure, it captures the water and keep it longer. So the soil has that ability to retain water. I can give you an example. Sand soil. Sand soil is structureless. It doesn't have any structure. So anything moves through soil, through sand soil. But if you put more organic material into sand soil, it retains the water much better and nothing just moves through sand soil if we have this organic material in the soil. And I want us, must be our main focus when it comes to gardening. That anything that or the waste that you'll find in the kitchen, such as tea bags, your eggshells. I hope that there are of us who still use their coffee, the old way of coffee, not the instant coffee. If you can use those leftovers of the coffee and also add it to the soil, it really helps to improve the structure of the soil, the water capacity of the soil. Yes, and if your soil has that, then really your soil is more healthy for your plants. When cultivating the soil, it is essential to improve it, the texture and the quality on an ongoing basis, and it's exactly what I've said now. By adding organic material, you are actually, that is your cultivation of your soil. By making it deep, loose, make sure that the soil is deep. That's the first step. For me, when it comes to gardening, we've selected the area where you want to do your gardening, but then the first step is to make it deep, loose, remove stones, but important thing is making it deep, loose. Now, organic matter acts as a soil conditioner, improving the structure, the drainage, and the aeration of the soil, especially clay soil. When we have clay soil, you actually improve the air in that soil. Now, sand soil do have a lot of air in it. It is so. Sand soil has abundance of air. But when it comes to clay soil, less air, compact easily. So by adding organic material to that soil, you are actually improving the aeration of such soil. Now, guys, our roots of the plants, the roots of plants needs air, oxygen. It needs oxygen by making the soil deep, loose, adding all the mineral or the organic material to the soil, you are actually helping the aeration of the soil. But the other thing that I didn't mention to us is when adding organic material to the plant, you are actually improve or increase the levels of carbon dioxide. Now, our plants, yes, needs also carbon dioxide in the soil, and it also needs oxygen in the soil. So by using all these crop manure, pig manure, horse manure, animal manure, and all the stuff, chicken and all this stuff, you are actually helping to increase the carbon dioxide in the soil. More carbon in the soil, the better your plant is growing. Sandra? Now, that is an example of a good soil, which are actually compost, and we can see sand, I can see sand particles into it. If your soil looks like that, then it is good. Now, soil, for me, soil, or soil particle, and soil particle is not really a good soil. And I'll explain it to you now. When your soil is mixed with organic material, what you see in front of you now, that is how your soil should be. But when it is soil particle in the soil, then the cohesion of the soil particles are too strong. So these particles is actually pulling towards each other, and it makes the cultivation of such soil much difficult. But by adding water to it, you are actually breaking the powers of that soil particles with one another, and you bring in water, and now you'll find that the soil becomes more softer, and it is much easier to dig into that soil. So if you're adding, but remember, if you water it, the water will dry out, the soil becomes dry. But if you're adding organic matter in such soil, your soil stays for longer loose. And that is very important. When your soil is loose, there are air in the soil, there are water instead of moisture in the soil, and your plant can grow much better when your soil is mixed with organic matter. And I'm saying, I can give us an example. If you have one bed, and the length of that bed is 6 meters, for example, for each 1 square meter, you can actually put 1 wheelbarrow of organic material in such soil. And the more of that is in the soil, the better the soil and the healthier your soil becomes. Digging of the soil, dig the soil very deep, guys. It is very important. I'm using, if it is the first time that I start with my garden, I'm using a pick. That is my way of make sure that the soil is like very, oh, there's something wrong here. Is deep, and the deeper the roots of your plants can easily, and soil doesn't dry out too easily. I think that is what I said earlier. The soil is relatively cool, and that is good, especially in the summer times. When your soil is cool, your hair roots, which are the ones which are responsible for the take up of that water, those hair roots can strive much better. They can take up the water and the minerals much easier. But when your soil becomes warmer and it becomes hot, then it becomes a problem for the plant and the roots of that plants. If that condition stays for longer like that, and I can give you an example, 10 to 15 days, then you see that your plant becomes wilting, the leaves of it becomes wilting. That is an indication that there is less water in the soil, and especially in the summer times, or your plant can also, your plant can also in the later stage, if that conditions prevail for longer periods, the plant starts to die off. Okay. Losing the soil. By making the soil deep loose, we put automatically air in the soil. And I said that we also air consisting of carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and oxygen. So those 3 elements are crucial for the plant roots. So carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and oxygen, the moment that you make the soil deep loose, you are actually putting air in and oxygen. Now, the oxygen in the soil helps the root system to breathe easily. And that's why I emphasize so on loose soil. So the moment that you make your soil loose, never step again on the area where you intend to put the plants. So the moment that you loosen the soil, people mustn't walk on the loose soil. Otherwise, then you compact it again and you press out all the air out of the soil. And I can give you an example. If you add soil into a glass and you add water to it, as the water is infiltrate into the soil, you can see bubbles on top of the surface. And that bubbles is actually air which are pressed out of the soil. So by walking on loose soil, you are actually pressing out the air, which is important for root growth and root development. And there's an example of that is how I do the loosening of soil. The guy here on the left side with the red mustard, that is me, and the rest of the ones is the participants of the training here in George. In George, I'm in Oudtshoorn at the moment. So I'm using a fork, guys. the fork, and that fork, you have to put it deep into the soil. You mustn't see the length of the fork part. You step it deep, and that is how I make my soil loose. Make sure it is deep loose, okay? And this is also one example to making the beds. I prefer the beds when you are in areas where water is not a problem. The bed is actually the best way to do water. Your soil stays loose, and you walk only in the path area that you provide between the beds. That is the path where you walk. You don't step on the beds. The moment that you step on the beds, then you compact the soil. So I'm walking around my beds or between the beds in a path that I provide to the plants. I can maybe give you the advantages of bed making is the soil stays loose for the full time. The other thing also is the drainage of the water is much better, especially when you have rainy times, then the water doesn't accumulate around the roots of the plant. So when water accumulates around the roots and it stays for longer, then there's less air in such soil. And we can see the symptoms on the leaves. The leaves becomes yellow when your soil is saturated with water, meaning there are more water than air in the soil. So we need actually air in our soil with moisture. And in the lab, the guys is talking about 25% air, 25% water. What that must be in the soil. Then you have a balance between those two. The disadvantage of this one is you plant less plants. There's less plants in your beds. If compared to flat planting is only where you make the soil loose, you rake it, even make sure that it is level, and then you start with the rows. So that system, when you talking about flat planting, the guys in Merivale where it is less water, I'll rather think of flat planting in terms of so to bring your roots closer to the water. Whereas if it is a bed, your plants stands a little bit higher away from the water or the moisture. Next, Sandra. Okay.
I have changed.
Okay,
should I move?
Sandra. Okay, good. Those are only pics for preparation. This is a commercial way to loosen the soil or with a disc to make it actually fine after you plow it. Then you use that implement to making it to break up the clots and so on. That's what the farmers is doing normally. We use the rake to do that. Making the beds to produce a healthy plant, you need a healthy root system. Guys, that is very important. You need a healthy root system, and good soil preparation is essential for a healthy, strong root system, which in turn, a vigorous and attractive plant that you see there. Now, what is good soil preparation? I think I have to explain that maybe. Good soil preparation is this deep soil preparation, deep soil loosening of your soil, putting all the nutrients prior to planting time. Remember, you mustn't make the soil loose and put all the nutrients, your compost or fertilizers at that time in the soil. Some of your nutrient elements, they are released slowly into the soil. So you have to put the nutrients like your crow manure, your pig manure, and all that stuff say for example, 2 to 3 months, I prefer 1 month before planting time, that you put those into the soil. So when you bring the plant or the seed to your garden, all the nutrients are available for the root system. It takes time, especially when we do it organically. It takes time for the microbes, the microorganisms to break down the compost and also the manure in such a way that the nutrients which are in the manure, that they are released. So it takes time for them to happen. So it is best to do your soil preparation prior of planting time or sowing time, so that by the time that you put the seed or the seedling or the small young plant into the soil, that all the nutrients are there and they are available to the root system. Remember, guys, these seedlings that we use or seeds that we use, they are bred to grow fast. They are bred to grow very fast. So if all the nutrients, the fertility of that soil is not correct, then you have slow growth of your plants. So it means we have to make sure that all the nutrients are in the soil and it is available to the plant at the time of sowing or planting. Time of soil preparation, I think I've mentioned it also. Autumn is for me actually the best time for digging beds and so on. I know it's warm that time of the year. It's warm, but March, April, plants that I prefer to plant in that time, it is butternuts. Seeing that butternuts can hold much longer, and it's a very short grower compared to your normal pumpkin. Pumpkins take a little bit longer, so you need more water to grow pumpkins. But when it's butternuts, yeah, from your 3rd month, you can already start in harvesting it of it. And it is not like perishable. It can stay much longer compared to a carrot. So you can store it maybe on the house. You can store it. Most of the guys is hang it. Actually, that is the best way to hang it under shading and where there's no water or rain can contaminate it. If you hang it, it is actually much better under a shading or so on. Springtime. Maybe I can just go back to March, April. That's the time when you start with your cool weather plants, such as your cabbages, or your lettuce, your spinach, your beetroot, your carrot. Carrot is actually it's standing also for 4 months. That is a period normally that it stands in the soil. So yes, we can also maybe start with carrots, especially in areas which receive a winter rainfall. We receive more rainfall in the winter, so carrots will not be a problem for your water consumption if you get water in the winter. So butternuts also is also those crops that which you can plant that time, but butternuts is actually a summer plant. But I also prefer it here in the autumn time, so that you have butternuts here in June, July, August, that time when the pricing of your butternuts is very high. Potato is also is a summer plant. It can also be planted that time. We know that potatoes here in June, July, August, September, that time, the potato price is very high in South Africa. And if you have at that time potatoes in your garden, you don't have a problem to go to. You don't need to go to ShopRite Checkers and so on, or retail stores and so on. Okay, the ideal soil for vegetable production is loam soil. Yes. Now, loam soil is actually a mixture of sand soil and clay soil. So those particles of clay and sand that you'll find in a loam soil, but that is done through testing. You can't add clay soil and loam soil together, and then you declare that one as loam soil. It doesn't work like that. Nature do that for us. Nature do that for us. So loam soil is actually your best soil for vegetable gardening. And at least if you can do the deepness of your soil, again, deep, guys. Moderate acid, yeah, moderate acid. When we talk about moderate acid, it's around 5 to 6.8 pH of that soil, and that is actually the best. So if you use in the dry areas, in the drier areas, if you can use more of these, like your goats, the manure of goats and so on, or sheep or cattle and so on, if you utilize those, then you're actually making your soil more acid, seeing that the microbes is actually releasing acid in the soil, and this is good for your soil if your soil becomes more acid, especially in the drier areas. Planning, location of where you intend to establish your garden is very important. It must be sunny, the sun must shine, and the sun is important for the leaves to make food for the plants. Now remember guys, it's only plants who can convert minerals to usable energy for us to use it, to consume it. So the leaves and the roots are the most important thing. The roots is take up the nutrients and the water and send it to the leaf, and now the leaf can make the energy for the plant. So the healthier the leaf, the best is it. The healthier the leaf, the best is your yield. You can expect a higher yield if your leaf stays for longer periods healthy. And that's why most of your insects is actually attacking the leaf, seeing that they know the energy is in the leaf. Yeah. So you get the sunny area in your yard. It must be near tap or near water source. Maybe a water source, or if we make use, or you can easily for you to carry the watering can from maybe a drum or the catchment area and take it with the watering can. So the water is very important when it comes to vegetables. So that is the art, and also important to protect your garden. Make sure maybe you're fencing for the stray animals such as donkeys and so on. That your garden is secure. And important thing also, if you can maybe put some, especially in the summer times, if it is possible for a shade net and so on, that you put maybe a shade net just to protect your plants from the harsh conditions of sunlight and so on. Now, selecting types of vegetables are important, especially when it comes to water conservation, to conserve water. You have to select it. Otherwise, if you select crops which have a long growth season, you have to maintain it, you have to water it, you have to put nutrients to it. So lettuce, green beans, beetroot, butternuts, they are actually short growers. And here from the second month, you can actually start already to harvest it. Sandra? Harvesting, oh, we are back again. Okay. Harvesting from 4 months. Now, carrots, you are harvesting here from the 4th month. Cabbages, you start harvesting it from 4th month. Potatoes, peppers, actually, you harvest it also here. Actually, from the second, third month, you can actually harvest it from that time. Peppers, when it comes to a household garden and it's used for your own consumption, then you don't need, the pepper mustn't be like a size that you'll find in your retail stores. If it is a medium size, you can harvest it. And it is actually to the advantage of the plant. If you start to harvest it, then it actually creates more flowers to that plant. So the best is actually to harvest it. And maybe you can give it to your neighbors and so on, but it's actually to the advantage of the plant if you can harvest it and not wait until the size of a big size or so on. Sweet corn. Yeah, sweet corn is also one taking 4 months from 5 months time. And the thing of sweet corn, you don't need to wait until the kernels is hard, it's soft, then you can start to utilize it. For 5 months, maize, yes, maize, the normal maize that we have to cook, that one take 5 months, 5 to 6 months actually also, before you can harvest it. Tomatoes, again, yeah, from the 4th month, 3rd, 4th month, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, then you start to harvesting for that time. But remember, you can't harvest it continuously. For tomatoes, there is a due date. So 7 months is actually the one for me that you have to remove the plants and start over again. Onions, also 5 months. If you do the sowing of seeds here in March, April, then you will harvest it here in December, January. That is a long period to wait, and you have to water it, and you have to water it. Pumpkins the same. Remember, the longer the pumpkin can be in your garden, the sweeter it becomes. And that's why our older people, senior people, they put the pumpkins on the roofs, and that helps to make it more sweet. But before you can do that, you have to wait 5 to 6 months before you can harvest it. And that is a long period in terms of water usage. Why growing time is so important? That is very important, how long it takes. For the time the plant is in the soil, you have to do the following practices. You have to water it. You have to feed it. You have to remove weeds. You have to protect it against diseases and insects. Short growers need less water. It is so. Especially in areas where we experience a shortage of water or where the water is very expensive, then you have to think about those crops that I've mentioned now. Will it be able for me as a gardener to use water where the plant is standing for 6 years, 7, 8, 10 months? Or is it my best option to only use crops which have a short growing period? But the important thing is the need of the house doesn't determine the water. They only want or like pumpkins, or they like tomatoes. But so those are the things you have to consider when it comes to tomatoes, which is a long grower. Plant nutrients. Now, the organic elements and inorganic elements. And the inorganic elements, you'll find micro elements and also macro elements. Now, organic elements, those are the ones that I've mentioned: your pig manure, your kraal manure, your horse manure, your cattle manure, all those manure that we've mentioned, compost, and also those forms part of your organic elements. And plant nutrients, you can't water your plants alone. By watering it, you will not get the increase the potential of the plant. You need to add nutrients to the soil, and those nutrients must be available to the plant roots so that the plants can take up that water and nutrients out of the soil. So those are very important things. Inorganic elements is the fertilizers that you buy there at the co-op or at the fertilizer suppliers, and they are divided into micro elements and macro elements. Can we move forward? Now, your macro elements, the plant needs those in abundance. The macro elements, the plants need those in abundance, like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, or we also said here in the gardeners, the potash. sulfur, calcium, magnesium, those must be in the soil. It must be in the soil for your plant to grow vigorous and so on. If there's no nitrogen, such as cabbages, lettuce, leafy plants, then they have a short, stunted growth in the cabbages. So nitrogen helps for vigorous growth. It helps a lot for vigorous growth. The plant will grow very vigorously. New roots will develop. New leaves, new growth points will develop. That forms part of vigorous growth. Phosphorus helps for root development. That is what phosphorus is doing. So your plants needs phosphorus to grow to extend the root system of it. Potassium, and we can see potassium is actually helping, especially for tomatoes, and calcium also for tomatoes, for the shelf life of that plant, of the tomato plant. But in general, for other crops, it helps for the size of your tomato, your potato, your carrot. So then you have a very nice big carrot or a big beetroot. That is what potassium is doing for our plants. But potassium is also helping with magnesium for photosynthesis. If photosynthesis is taking place, that is a process that the leaves is using to make food for the plant. It helps for photosynthesis. So if that process, food making process, is in place, it is healthy, then you can expect a much bigger yield. Microelements, copper, zinc, manganese, boron, iron, and molybdenum, the plants need that in small amounts. Very important, but not in large amounts. So those are very important, and those are actually, when you, I can give an example for us in terms of copper, zinc, manganese, and boron. We're talking about foliar application. Foliar application, meaning you apply the fertilizer on the leaf. So there are organic liquid fertilizers that you can apply, that you can buy at retail shop, but the co-ops, they do have it, like your Seagrow, Calpac, New Film. Those are liquid that you can apply directly to the leaves, and they have these elements. In all of these elements does it have in that liquid form. Now, if there is less of this nitrogen in the soil, nutrients in the soil, then the plant will have stunted growth. It is so. And that's why I'm saying you can't just put a seedling in the soil. You have and water it. No, it will not work like that. You have to feed it before you start with the planting. So yeah, you will find we grow if there's a nitrogen deficiency, small leaves, less strength, yellow leaves that you will find. And there's a difference between the yellow leaves. Yellow leaves can also be caused by insects, and also by too much water which is in the soil. Phosphorus, purple leaves that you will find, less fruit and flowers. If there's less flowers, less fruits. It is so. So your leaves becomes purple. But again, before we move away from this slide, cabbages also have a color change, where the color changes to purple, especially in the winter time. So it doesn't mean that is a cause of a deficiency in phosphorus. So if it is maybe in the summertime, in your experience, this purple leaves, then the case could be that it's a shortage of phosphorus in the soil. But if it is the winter, then they, especially harsh winter conditions, then they could, that purple could be due to environmental conditions instead of phosphorus problems. Sandra? Okay. Potassium is also a macro element. Yellowing of leaves that you'll find, spots between the veins and your your grain beans is typical for that. It could be a potassium problem, or it could maybe a magnesium problem. Potassium, you'll find yellowing, as we can see here, the edges of the leaf starts to curl, and the yellowing becomes centered. So the yellow becomes centered into it, to the center of the plant. But when it is magnesium problem, then the yellow is over the full area of the leaf, and you don't have this curling of the leaves when it is a magnesium problem. Okay. Calcium, typical, this is the symptoms when you experience a calcium problem in tomatoes. Okay. And that's a typical magnesium problem which you'll find. This is grapes, but this is only an example of magnesium problem that you'll find, especially on green beans. Green beans really have a problem when there's less calcium of magnesium in the soil. Inorganic fertilizers like your nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and so on. Nitrogen, and I think is your LAN. Our focus will merely be on the organic fertilizers. Urea, 46%, nitrogen, 28% LAN, phosphorus, P stands for potassium. So those are inorganic fertilizers that you buy in a granule form or in a powder form at the co-ops or retail shops. Okay. Inorganic fertilizers, again, you'll find single fertilizers, your LAN, 28%, or urea for 46%. The LAN stands for limestone ammonium nitrate. That is what it stands for. Superphosphate in the K, it is actually that KCI is actually for potassium, although it's a K, but it actually stands for potassium chloride. That is what it stands for. Okay. When it is a mixture of single fertilizers, the 2-3-2-30, the 2-3-4-30, the 3-2-1, it is actually the first one refers to the nitrogen, the N, the 3 is for the P, the phosphorus, and also the 2, the last 2, it is actually for the potassium that is stands for. So, but you can, when you send soil samples to a labs or Department of Agriculture, then the guys will work out the formulation, what formulation is needed for such a crop. I can just give you an example, 10136 in this case, but we've used 10122, and we've used it for our paprika. Now, paprika doesn't need phosphorus too much, especially in the beginning, yes. But when it's in the productive stage, in the flowering, in the fruit stage, then 101 is the best, meaning that 1 stands for the nitrogen unit, 0, you don't need a phosphorus, and another 1 is for your potassium. The purple, your paprika are the best price you will find for your paprika. Now, organic fertilizer, that is the most important thing for us. Compost, we can make our own compost, in our yard. That's why I'm saying to us, the waste products in the kitchen, the peels, the potato peels, all those waste that we prepare the food for carrots, potatoes, and even cabbages and so on. We can make a compost heap out of it. A compost heap out of the straws, the weeds that we remove from our yards, making the yard clean, remove weeds, those we can utilize and put this in the middle of your compost heap. You have to also to put soil, seeing that your microorganisms is in the soil and they are responsible for the decomposing of dead plant material or dead carcasses or animal carcasses and so on. So if you're adding in the middle of your heap a soil, that will speed up the compost process. Now manure, I've mentioned, you can listen to me, I'm only talking about manure. That is the best for the soil. That is really the best for the soil. Green manure or green plants, when we're talking about, it's supposed to be green manure and not green plants. But if we work in the plants, the weed plants into the soil, that acts as a green manure. And that green plants that work into the soil, that is good, increase actually the carbon dioxide of the soil, but it also helps to make your soil more fertile if we use green manure. I think we have to maybe stop a little bit there. I just have to explain it. I've said to us 4 weeks or 3 weeks before planting time, we have to put, we have to make the soil loose. But then we water the soil, and then the weed starts to germinate. So if those germination takes place, you wait until the weed plants receive, say, 10 centimeter length, and those plants, you work it a bit into the soil, and that acts as a green manure in the soil. What is needed? The components to make soil. Of course, takes chicken manure. We get chicken manure into a compost heap, fresh, the better. If we can use it. Remember, our seniors has taught us, they teach us that if you use chicken manure and it's fresh, it will burn your plant. It is so. But here in the compost heap, no problem with it. Then you also need soil where all your organisms, microorganisms, which are responsible for decomposing of their plants, and also you need water. You have to water your compost heap on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. Then kitchen vegetables, the peels, those are except for those shiny papers, seeing that they hinders the decomposing process of the microorganisms. They do have a chemical which is not good for the microorganisms. So we will not use those in our compost heap. Also not citrus or lemons, lemons or citrus, all of them, you don't use it in a compost heap. Not herbs, although herbs is good to chase away the insects. When it comes to the compost, we don't use them in a. Sandra? So what is needed making compost is, again, your eggshells. We can use our eggshells, tea bags, and newspapers. Yes, those are the ones that we use, and also coffee leftovers, those coffees and so on, but not the leftovers of the plate, not those, or the dog manure, not those, or donkey manure. Maybe you can use donkey, but not dog manure or leftovers on a plate. And there we can see the person under a tree for the shading. That's the reason why there is where she locate her compost heap, and she water it on a regular basis. Now, in the beginning of your compost heap, it will heat up as these microorganisms working, do the decomposing. They're releasing two things in the compost heap: heat and acid. Those two is the ones is what they release into your compost heap. So when your compost heap is still warm and you can test it, then it means your compost is still not ready to be used. So, but when it is cooled down, it means most of the plants, straws and all the stuff are now decomposed. There are less food for the microorganisms to feed on. So shady place, and there's the straws. We can see the straws there. And the guys doing newspapers. Important thing is water, soil manure,
Anadin,
I don't want to use that word, but it actually composes for me. Your
Anadin, you are breaking again.
organic yes, and okay, Sandra.
You are breaking. Yes.
And can you tell me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can hear me now? Okay,
Yes.
where was the problem? So I can repeat myself again.
From the start of the slide.
That's that. Okay. On the top one, we can see the rough sticks, and normally we put the rough sticks at the bottom for drainage. For drainage, so if you water, so that the heat doesn't become saturated, waterlogged, if I can use that word also. So you need to put all the
I think, hello, Anadin. Hello.
and then your leaves and so on, you can put it on top. But this actually lazy this lazy soil or I me.
Anadin.
Hello.
Unfortunately, we are still
Can you hear
experiencing the
me?
same problem.
Okay.
Can you not just move a bit from where you are,
Sandra?
maybe? I'm saying we are still experiencing the same problem. Maybe if you can just move a little bit from where.
Okay, I'm trying to.
You have muted yourself. Can you please unmute so that we can hear you? Anadin, can you please unmute?
Can you hear me, Sandra?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You were muted.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Let's
I'll
try.
remove the video. No?
Yeah, no, remove the video.
Yes, I can.
Just to let you know, we are left with a few minutes as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Slide, where are we with the slide? I can't see it here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but you're breaking again, but
Again,
let's
how's that?
continue. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is the second one or the follow-up slide.
Okay.
Most organic waste, yes, most organic waste is suitable. Okay. Mulching stabilizes soil temperatures. It is so it conserves water and in especially in the warmer areas. But I think not only for the warmer areas, but if we can use mulching around our stems of the plants now, it is actually a surface layer of straws, or it could be paper that we put around the stem of the plants, and that actually helps to conserve water. And also in the summertime, the soil stays cool. But again, in the winter, if you have this mulching around the plants on the beds, then it actually warm up. It warms the conditions around the roots of the plants, and that's the reason why plants lose their leaves here at autumn time. That leaves around the trunk of a tree helps actually to keep the roots of the plants warm during the winter time. But in the summer, it is just the opposite. What the mulching is doing, it actually conserve water, and it also helps to cool the soil, especially for our. It reduces weed growth. Now, the weed will germinate, but as it grows through the soil, it comes in contact with the mulching, and then it comes in contact with the mulching, but there's no sunlight, then it dies. It's actually a way to control your weeds. But when it comes to mulching, you have to put it a little bit thicker, and the thicker, it's around the length of your hand, around 10 to 20 centimeters thick, then it will be suitable for and serve as a mulching. Now, sawdust, compost straws, those are the ones that you can use as a mulching. But when it comes to grass, there you have to be cautious. You have to be cautious there. Why? Because grass looks like if it is dead plant material, but it's still alive. So if you use that as a mulching, it will start to regrow again, if you water. I'll cut out grass for now, but straws, compost, sawdust, the weed plants that you'll find, which you remove from the garden, those, you can use those as a mulching for your plants. And that is one way to conserve water. Mulching is a method or practices, and also making the soil deep, loose. Those are the practices which are very important when it comes to conserving water. Okay, and that is just a picture of to show you how you apply the mulching. And this mulching layer, and the area here we see this area is moisture, moist. Moisture moves up to the dry area. It is so. Water only don't move from high to low, but they also move upwards to the surface of the soil. And that is how the soil moisture itself, actually in the root systems, stay cool during that period when there's a mulching. So the sun is shining on the mulching instead of on dry or on the surface of the soil. And there's an example of mulching. The straws between the plants, I just show you. And guys, it helps very nice for your plants. The plants grow very nice between these straws. It works very fantastic for your plant. And it is also a compost. It decomposes as you water. It starts to decompose, and it releases the microbes. It releases these nutrients which is in the straws into the soil, and the plant can actually live from those straws also. And there's also an example, maybe stones, especially for trees, but not for our vegetable gardens, please. Not for our vegetable gardens, but trees in our yards. It's a good way of a mulching system, and it also benefit for your landscaping in your yard with the stones and trees and all that stuff. It's a good way of landscaping in your garden. Another one, the straws that you add around your plants. But remember, guys, when it comes to seeds, you can use the mulching, especially in the winter time, for seeds also. But you have to be careful. By the time that the seed starts to germinate and emerge, then you have to remove the straws in the area where you'll find the seedling. Otherwise, your seeds will die due to the lack of sunlight. Okay. Now,
Hello.
irrigation can be. Oh,
Hello.
okay.
Anadin,
Again, yes or no?
can you hear me? Can you hear me, Anadin? He has dropped. Oh, it's still there. You are muted.
Oh, again. Oh, okay.
Okay. I just wanted to check. I see you still have a number of slides to go through, and we had scheduled this session for 2 hours, and it's now 1 o'clock. So I was wondering if probably we can schedule for next week for you to finish your presentation, or
Okay.
would the participants still want to go on, or we can schedule for next week? Please.
Maybe, yeah, Anadin, maybe if you want to give us an indication of how long, maybe if you want to continue for 10 minutes or so, just to wrap up. We do have another session with Anadin scheduled for next week.
Yes.
What do you think, Anadin? Could you do
No
another
problem.
10 minutes?
If
10
you can
minutes or so?
proceed, maybe for 10, 15 minutes. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
great.
with pleasure.
Okay.
With pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
That's no problem, please. Okay, this slide is only to show us how the mulching is done. Okay, we can move forward. Irrigation, and I think that is the most important topic when it comes to irrigation. It's an artificial application of water. It is so with an irrigation system. Now, by doing with a watering can, this is an irrigation system. as so irrigation system is not the ones that we see on farms, where if you even give water with a bucket, that is also forms part of a irrigation system. Flood irrigation is moving in the furrow. That is also a form of irrigation. Now, when you talk about irrigation, it's about to give the right amount of water at the right time, on the right time to your plant. That is very important. Okay, can we just go back again, Sandra? Okay, it's important. If it is a seed in the soil, you have to make sure that you water every day. That is very important. You have to water every day. And the best time when it comes to seeds in the summer, it is in the morning, early morning to do the watering, and you can also do it late evenings, not the afternoon, but maybe here before sunset. Before sunset, that would be for me the best time to water it again. And you don't give too much water. In a watering can, if you use a watering can, then that is the best way of doing, instead of just pour the water over the soil. That way of freely, water flowing freely, it helps, it creates compaction in the soil. But the nozzle of a watering can helps to make the water fine, and that's the best way to water your plants or your seeds. When it is seeds in the winter time, that is very important. If it's in the winter time, you only water the seeds in the morning, and the same with the seedlings. Only in the morning time and not during the day. Why? If you water during the day, then you cool down the soil. And for germination to take place, it needs water or moisture and heat. So we know that we do not have warm temperatures in the winter. So the best time for me is giving water only in the morning and not during the day. Why? You do not, there will still be moisture in the soil in the midday. So you don't need to water that time. But again, if it is seeds, you give water only in the morning and every morning until the seeds of the plant emerge. And from there, you can start every second day again, only in the morning and not during the day. The problem is if you water during the day, you cool down the temperature of the soil and it becomes so cold during the day. Nights, it starts to frost, and the free water in the soil also starts to frost. And then the problem is it takes longer for that seeds to germinate and emerge. And that's the reason why we only give water in the morning in the winter and not during the day. But the summer times, you water in the early morning and here late afternoon, not at 12 o'clock midday, not the time of the day. And gray water, that is the system of our gray water. Our houses, I know our houses is not like designed to catch, have a collection tank and so on. And from the collection tank, it moves down to the garden. But that collection tank can be there, but you have to fill it. If it is gray water from the bathroom, in the laundry, those water for me is suitable as gray water to be used in the garden. But important thing is, do not put that water on the leaves of the plant, but at the stem. That is very important. Seeing that is not clean water. So you only put that water here, the stem at the mulching. That is the area where you will put the water. Important thing also, You have to use that water, gray water, in the 12 hours after you've catch it or collect it. If you keep that water for longer periods, then it becomes black water. And that black water is no longer suitable for your plants. Yeah. It's black water is your sewage water from the toilets and all the stuff, and that is not suitable for your plants. Now, water from the kitchen, maybe yes, water from the bulb, but I just want to go back to the kitchen. Just want to go back to the kitchen. Yes, the plates, remember the plates are oily. It's oily normally. So if you rinse it first, the plates first, and then you wash it, then that water, you can utilize that water. Okay. Black water is normally generated from places such as toilets and your dishwashers and so on. That water is not suitable for your plants, so it goes straight to the municipality. Irrigation scheduling, and I've already done that in terms of scheduling when to do your applications for water. Rainwater, if you can have a catchment tank, like a JoJo tank, that is a one that you normally talk about. That is a very suitable to catch the water. But again, important thing is, if it is 2,500 liter tank, it doesn't mean that your garden should be like in size very big. Otherwise, you will use that water at once, even in one day, if the garden is too large. So you have to first start, especially if you start first, you have a JoJo tank, first start small. I think that is the best. And what is small? I think we have to terminate small. And what is small is a 1 meter width by 5 meters as a beginning. And if you see that the water, you can put another bedding, then you can extend maybe to another bedding. But important thing is, if you can have that water for 2 to 3, 4 weeks time, and it rains again in that time, that would be much suitable. So you have to manage your water in terms of the size of your garden. If you have a 5,000 liter tank, again, maybe you can have 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms and so on. 10,000 liters is for me the best actually, but at the house, it's very expensive. It's almost 8,000 to 10,000 rand. So a 10,000 liter, even more than that, maybe would not be suitable for us. But the 2.5, 5,000 liter tank is for me for a house. As a house tank is for me more than suitable. But then you have to limit the size of your garden. Irrigation is the system that you use. It could be a sprinkler irrigation system or the microjets. When you have a JoJo tank, then your drip irrigation is for me the best. If you have your JoJo tank, then your drip irrigation is the best. I've done it there in Daniel Scale and also in Ellisdale, and it works perfectly in Ellisdale and also in Daniel Scale. The storage is a JoJo tank. The evapotranspiration is exactly what I mentioned now. The drip irrigation, the pipe is lying on the ground, and then the water is actually dripping here next to the plant, and that is the best way of water your plants. Yeah, and you can do your own drip irrigation. No need to buy expensive one roll of a 50 centimeter spacing pipe. It costs you 4,500 rand. It's a lot of money. So by just buying, if you can buy a pipe, a solid pipe, 15 to 20 mil pipe, then in diameter, then you can make a hole right through the pipe with a string through it. You cut the string, and that string will actually create a drip to the water. So there's different ways. When I'm coming to watering, I'm saying to myself, I will use my own experience and see how I can maintain the water and have to save my water and so on. We've done it with the selection of the crops, and now we've done it with the deepness of the soil, and now we come to the irrigation system. And when it is a JoJo thing, then your drip irrigation is the best. But the watering can is also a nice one, seeing that you measure actually the total water that you carry to your seed beds. And it's important, you can actually count the watering cans that you apply to a bed of you, and that will determine how long you will go with that JoJo tank of water.
Yeah. Thanks, Eugene. We have gone through the 10 minutes again. I would just want to
Okay.
if we can ask the participants if we can have probably 1 or 2 questions based on what we have heard today. There is a session next week. I'm sure you'll continue, and then we'll have more questions. But if you do have questions for today, you can raise your hands, or you can you can put your question in the chat box. I see, well, Fred is saying he needs to run. He's got another meeting. Thanks, Freddie.
Thanks, Freddie.
Any questions for Anadin? I don't see any questions, Anadin. I'm sure we will have some more questions next week.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much, Anadin, for the session that we have had today. A very detailed presentation on on planning for when we are having our vegetable gardens, what we need to have in place. We have learned quite a lot from you today, and I'm sure we'll continue to learn a lot, so that when we actually start with our gardens, they will be very productive, because we will be applying lessons that we are learning here.